Hello and welcome to Let's Play the Stanley Parable. So, the Stanley Parable is a source mod. This is a game I have never played before. I was told that doing a Let's Play of it might make it a bit awkward because of its nature, but he didn't want to spoil it for me. So he just said because of its nature, my friend who told me about this game. So I basically have no idea what I'm getting into. Standard source mod options, nothing too interesting. New game, chapter 1. Let's roll. Alright, let's hope this game won't have the loading screens from hell. Loading screen, why you so mean? Okay.
This is the story of a man named Stanley.
Cool.
Stanley worked for a company in a big building where he was employee number 427. Employee number 427's job was simple. He sat at his desk in room 427 and he pushed buttons on a keyboard.
Just buttons.
Orders came to him through a monitor next to his desk, telling him what buttons to push, how long to push them, and in what order. This is what employee 427 did every day of every month of every year.
Well, okay, no, I
and
would
although
kill
others
someone.
might have considered it soul-rending, Stanley relished every moment that the orders came in, as though he had been made exactly for this job. And Stanley was happy.
Good for him.
And then one day something very peculiar happened.
Cool.
Something that would forever change Stanley. Something he would never quite forget. He had been at his desk for nearly an hour when he realized that not one single order had arrived on a monitor for him to follow.
Panic!
No one had showed up to give him instructions, call a meeting, or even say hi. Never in all his years at the company had this happened, this complete isolation. Something was very clearly wrong.
Time for an
Shocked,
adventure?
frozen solid, Stanley found himself unable to move for the longest time. But as he came to his wits and regained his senses, he got up from his desk
He'd been knocked
and walked out into
unconscious
the
by a
hallway.
lack of orders. Okay, first of all, this narrator is awesome. He's very sort of Douglas Adams-y, and that's good. Close the door. Okay, just chill.
Stanley decided to go to the staff lounge to check on his
Keeping my eye on
co-workers.
you.
He never functioned well by himself and constantly needed support and guidance from others, so the thought of total solitude was terrifying to him.
Poor Stanley. This building is slightly, it's not as soul-crushing as a corporation could be, but it's pretty soul-crushing. It's pretty bland. It's at least pleasant colors, though.
When Stanley came to a set of two open doors, he entered the door on his left.
Oh. Should I say, fuck the narrator? Oh, decisions are hard. Alright, no, I'm gonna roleplay. I'm Stanley. I feel like I just made a terrible mistake that will trap my life forever.
As Stanley entered the lounge, he was horrified to find not a single person here. He decided he would walk up to see his boss, hoping that he would find an answer there.
That's unnerving. Alright. Okay, boss man.
Coming to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office.
Fuck narrators.
But Stanley just couldn't do it.
Ooh.
He considered the possibility of facing his boss, of admitting that he had left his post during work hours. He might be fired for that. And in such a competitive economy, was it really worth taking that risk? All because he believed everyone had disappeared.
I like how no matter
His
which
boss would
choice
think he
I
was
pick,
crazy.
I'm a pansy.
And then something occurred to Stanley.
Chess.
Maybe, he thought to himself, maybe I am crazy.
Well, I'm hearing a voice
Everyone
in my
I
head.
know simply vanishing out of the blue, there's almost no other explanation for it. And a
These
nagging
doors are
fear
freaking me
began
out.
to creep up in his mind. Questions that had been there all along. He just hadn't put his finger on them yet. For example, why couldn't he see his feet when he looked down?
Can we stop? Actually, no.
Why
keep
did
raving
doors
before
close
fall.
automatically behind him wherever he went? And for that matter, these rooms were starting to look pretty familiar. Was he just walking around in circles? Where am I, he thought. And the more he found himself unable to answer these questions,
Okay.
the more
This is
questions
creepy.
continued to arise, until he came to the issue that had been slowly balling, until he could ignore it no longer.
Why am I hearing a voice in my head?
Why is there a voice in my head, dictating everything that I'm doing and thinking? Suddenly, every door slammed shut. No, Stanley screamed. I need to get out of here.
No, I need to get out of
know
here.
that
I
there's
need to know
something
there's
out
something
there.
going on
I need
there.
to know it's not just all in my
No,
head.
it's not all just in my head.
And he
It's
screamed
hard to do
and
that.
clutched at his skull as the voice grew harsher and the music in the background rose higher and higher.
That's cool.
And then, moments before collapsing to the ground, Stanley clenched his fists and screamed to anyone who might be listening, I'm not real!
I'm not
I'm
real.
not
I'm
real.
not real.
Don't believe any of it. None of it's real.
See,
And
I
then
can
everything
roleplay.
went black.
No, Stanley! Stanley, no!
This is the story of a woman named Mariella.
Okay.
Mariella woke up on a day like any other. She got dressed, went to work, clocked
She
in,
woke
clocked out,
up in a
and then she
derpy
walked home.
position.
But her walk on this day was interrupted by the body of a man who had stumbled through town talking and screaming to himself, and then collapsed dead on the sidewalk.
Oh,
Moments after seeing him, she would turn,
right.
run to the nearest police station, and call for an ambulance. But for just a few brief seconds, she merely stood there, unable to move. The tragedy was not the death of a single person. It was that she would never know this man's story, never hear in his own words what had happened to him, or what he believed had happened to him. For to know these things would be to exist inside the head of the man himself. So all she could do was observe from a distance and pity him. But Mariella had places to be and people to meet with, very important people, whose impressions of her would affect her career and indeed the rest of her life. She stood there for only a moment, looking down at the body, and then she ran.
This is really upbeat music. Alright, there have got to be other endings. So, join us in the next part when we check out the next ending of the Stanley Parable.